So in this video, we are going to revise CC8, which is acids. And one of the main reactions that you need to know on this topic is the reaction of an acid and a base to form salt and water. There are three acids that you need to know. And this is all in your booklet on page 17. Page 18. The three acids that you need to know are hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, and nitric acid. Okay, so the three acids you need to know. You react an acid with a base. Okay, there are lots of different types of bases, but they all fall into the same three categories. They are either metal oxides. So you take the name of a metal, put it in front of the word oxide, and you've got a metal oxide. So calcium is a metal. If I put that in front of the word oxide, I've got calcium oxide, which is a base. You can take a metal and put it in front of the word hydroxide. So sodium is a metal, put it in front of the word hydroxide, and you've got a base. Or you can take the name of a metal and put it in front of the word carbonate, and you will have a base. So sodium is a metal, put it in front of the word carbonate, and you have got a base. So three acids that you need to learn, but three different types of bases: metal oxides, metal hydroxides, and metal carbonates. And when you react an acid and a base, you get a salt and water, and you need to be able to name the salt. So if I look at my first example, hydrochloric acid, that's my acid, plus calcium oxide. Calcium is a metal. In front of the word oxide makes calcium oxide a base. When I'm writing the name of the salt, I take the metal from the base, so calcium, and then to get the end of the salt, because the salt is two words, I look at the acid that I have used. This table on page 18 must be learned off by heart, okay? If you use hydrochloric acid, the name of the salt ends in chloride. I've used hydrochloric acid, so the name of my salt ends in chloride. Okay, so I'm getting the word calcium from the calcium oxide, and I'm getting the word chloride from the hydrochloric acid. Then I've got plus water. If I do another one, I'm sticking with hydrochloric acid, but now I've changed my base to lithium hydroxide. Lithium is a metal. In front of the word hydroxide makes it a base. To name my salt, I take the word lithium, which is my metal. And to get the second word of the salt, I look at my acid. It's again hydrochloric acid, which means again the salt is going to end in the word chloride. So I'm just taking that word lithium from the base. The metal from the base is always the first word. And then to get my second word, I look at the acid. Okay, and again it's plus water. Use your table on page 18 to do the other two yourself. So I'm using different acids, sulfuric acid and nitric acid. You'll need to use the table on page 18 to see the ending of the salt name. Press pause, complete those for yourself, and then press play when you're ready to see the answers. Pay attention to the last one. Calcium carbonate gives you an extra product. Can anyone remember what it is? Okay, so I've filled this in. Magnesium is my metal, so magnesium is going to be the first word in my salt. My acid is sulfuric acid, so the salt ends in sulfate, plus water. Okay, it's always a salt and water. The next one, calcium is my metal, so calcium is the first word in the salt. This time I'm using nitric acid, so the second word is nitrate. I'm getting that information from the table on page 18, which you need to learn off by heart, okay? Nitric acid, it ends in nitrate. Sulfuric acid, it ends in sulfate, okay? Plus water. But when you've got a carbonate base, you get an extra product, and that extra product is CO2. So you always get a salt and water, but if your base is a carbonate, you will also have carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a gas, so you will see bubbles. How will you prove that this gas is definitely carbon dioxide? You would bubble the gas through lime water, and if lime water turns cloudy, then the gas is carbon dioxide. Okay, so that's your test for carbon dioxide. Lime water turns cloudy. In your revision guide on page 19, I want you to have a go at questions from questions 1 the whole way down to 11. Okay, you've got a few equations here that you need to complete, just like the ones we've just done. Okay, And any of the other questions that you can't maybe remember how to answer, just look at the information that I've given you on page 18. But have a go answering questions 1 to 11. I have given you the answers underneath. Try not to look at them, okay? Try and answer it by yourself first, and then when you're finished, go back and mark your work. Okay, so the answers to questions 1 to 11 are here, okay? We should hopefully remember the ion in an acid is H+, in an alkali it's OH-. If I want to show that something's an alkali, okay, I'm going to add a little bit of indicator. I've picked universal indicator, and if it's an alkali, it's going to turn blue or it's going to turn purple, okay? If I wanted to show something was an acid, I'd add a little bit of universal indicator, and if it was an acid, it would turn red, okay? Calcium, what did I ask you about? I asked you about calcium oxide, okay? Calcium oxide's a base, it's a metal oxides, and metal oxides are bases. These are the answers to your questions, okay? Hopefully you remember to write carbon dioxide. And then in number 10, you're asked, what would you see? You would see bubbles because you're forming a gas. And then if you wanted to prove that gas was carbon dioxide, you would bubble that gas through lime water. And if it turns milky or cloudy, then your gas is carbon dioxide, okay? Those reactions that we just practiced writing, they are called neutralization reactions. And as you can see, you always make a salt and you're always making water. You can be asked, how do you make a salt? And you would say that you react an acid with a base because that always makes a salt, okay? But when you're making the salt, you're not just making the salt, you're also making water. And at the end of the reaction, you need to be able to separate the salt from the water. So if you've already done your revision for CC2, which is separating mixtures, then hopefully you'll remember how to do this. How am I going to separate salt and water? Okay, it's a terrible diagram. How am I going to separate the salt from the water? Okay, because when you're doing this reaction, you're making a salt, but you're also making water. How am I going to get rid of the water? To do that, to get rid of the water, I would use crystallization. Okay, I'm going to heat my salt and water. That is going to cause all of my water to evaporate. And because my water will evaporate, I will be left with my salts. Okay, so how do you separate salt and water? You heat the salt and water, that water will evaporate, and you are just left with your salts. You don't want to heat too quickly because you want to form nice big salt crystals, and then you will leave those salt crystals to dry. Okay, now I go through that answer at the end of page 18. Okay, this is how you would make a salt. Okay, you add the base to the acid. You filter to get rid of that extra base, and then you heat to evaporate the water. Let the rest of it evaporate slowly. Nice big crystals, which you will then leave to dry. Okay, you do need to know this. You need to know how you react an acid and a base to form a salt and water, and then how you're going to separate the water at the end. Okay, you need to filter to get rid of the solid. Then you're going to heat, evaporate some of the water, and you're going to leave your crystals to dry. Make sure you can describe that process. To test yourself on making salts, you should answer question 14. How would you make the salt magnesium sulfate? By reacting the base magnesium oxide and a suitable acid. Okay, so they've told you in the question what base you are using, magnesium oxide. What acid do you need to react it with to get magnesium sulfate? If your salt is a sulfate, then what acid do you need to use to get a sulfate salt? Okay, so you need to figure out what acid you're going to use, and then you will say that the acid and the base react together to get the salt and water, and then you need to describe how you're going to separate that salt from the water. So I know the answer is underneath, but please just try and answer it for yourself first, or learn your answer and then see if you can write it down yourself, okay? Reading it is not enough. You need to practice writing it out. So even if you learn off the answer, but then close your book over and practice writing what you've just learned, okay? It's really, really important, okay? So press pause and have a go at that instead of just looking at the answer. When you do look at the answer, it's down here at the bottom of page 19. If you want to make a sulfate salt, then the acid has to be sulfuric acid, okay? You add more base than you need, which means you need to filter it out. And once you've filtered out all of that extra solid base, you heat your salt in water, you evaporate the water, and you're going to leave your crystals to dry. Okay, so they are neutralization reactions which enable you to make salts.